Hi, welcome to 10 Minute Violin. I'm Miguel Ramirez, and this is the training session for the 10-minute practice video titled Violin Ear Training Part 1. I want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of our format here at 10 Minute Violin. First of all, I want to clarify that this session here is not the 10-minute practice video itself. This is the training session where we'll explain in detail how to best approach the material presented in our Violin Ear Training Part 1 10-minute practice video. So it's important to watch this training session at least once before following along with the 10-minute practice video so you can optimize your time spent with it. The separate 10-minute practice video is available on our YouTube channel, and you can easily find it by following the link in the description below. An easy way to think about it is if you view this training session as your lecture or class and the separate 10-minute practice video as your lab or homework. You'll want to go through each practice video at least once a day for at least a week. There's no rush though. I encourage you to work with each practice video as long as you need to be able to perform the exercises with accuracy and ease. In this training session, we'll be using a digital tuner app to help learn some basic vocal control. We train the ear by using our voice. So that's why this is the first step in our ear training series. The great part about today is that the technology we'll be using makes the process of learning to control your voice a lot easier to understand because it gives you a visual aid, and hopefully you'll have a lot of fun with it. I know that I do. Finally, we hope this information will be valuable for you no matter what level you're on on the violin, and we also hope this will be a helpful resource for those of you who are viola students. So last few things before we dive into the material. Follow the links below if you'd like to book a private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video, and like and share it with your friends. To begin, you'll need to download a tuning app to your preferred device, whether it be your phone or tablet. Most of the time, I prefer dedicated standalone devices for use in the practice room, like an actual metronome, that only is a metronome, or an actual timer that tells you how long you're practicing, etc. So that way you don't have to be toggling back and forth between them on your phone, and they're stable and reliable. They don't need updating, and they won't distract you with calls and texts and things like that during your practice session. For tuners, though, for this case, I make an exception because, especially when it comes to ear training, that's because there's a specific function on the tuner that you'll need for what we'll be doing. That function is the dial that you see here on the screen next to me. You'll see why this is important when we start the exercises. But I've not yet seen a standalone tuner that has this function, so I'll recommend everyone to use the app. And of course, if all you have is an app for your metronome and your timer, whatever, all the other things, that's totally fine. I'm just saying I recommend, if you can with those other things, to have standalone devices because they just tend to be less distracting than having your phone with you during practice sessions. Now, the specific app I'm using for this series is called CarlTune. I'm really thankful that this particular app exists because in addition to the dial function, it has other features that will work really well for what we're going to be doing in this series. So just to let you know, I know we have it on the screen, but I'm just showing you here. I have it actually on my phone here. I think you can get it also on tablets if that's what you're more comfortable with. But what you see on the screen is basically just what is coming from my phone here. So it also has other features that are working really well for what we're going to be doing with our series. One of the most important things is that it's available for both the Android and the iOS platforms. So as a teacher, that's extremely important because I want to make sure all of you are able to follow along with this series no matter what kind of device you have, what kind of platform you're using. So it's available, yes, for both Android and iOS devices. So let me walk you through the features of the CarlTune app. On the top left, you'll find the concert pitch setting. So top left, and it's marked with a 440.0. Okay, that's where it's preset to. So you see the top left there. That's where we want it to stay for now, at least. And most likely that's just where you're always going to want it to stay. If it does accidentally get changed, you're just going to tap the number. I'll tap it here. When you tap the number, this is what comes up. And you can change it back by either scrolling through the numbers here. So say if it gets changed to 445 for some reason, we don't want it on 445. So you can scroll through the numbers back down 440, or if it's 440.9. That's really not going to make the biggest difference, but you could still scroll back. We're looking for 440.0. So that's how you can bring it back. You also, there's another way if it gets changed again, you could just press this reset button that's on the top right next to the done button, but there's one next to that says reset. So if I press that reset, I'm going to do that right now, and you'll see it's going to change from 432 back to 440. So that's another way to get it back to where it should be. One more way to get it back, you can press the A4 button on the left. So again, I'll purposely change it. Change it way off. Okay, 387.92. Somehow somebody gets a hold of it and goes to that number for some reason. Okay, so another way you can do it is A4 on the left side. I'm going to press that A4 button right in the middle of that stack. And there it goes back again to 440. So those are the ways you can reset it. And so you always want to make sure it's on 440. And then after you do that, then just press done on the top right. I'm going to press done, and it brings us back to the main screen. All right, so moving on. On the top right, you have a staff showing you where the note being sung or played would be on written music. Okay, so I'm singing about an E there. So it's kind of toggling. I don't know why it's doing between treble and bass clef there on E. Anyway, so the only thing you can do with this is if you tap on it, you're able to change its size. So I'm just going, you're not going to really need to use all these things, but I'm just going through in case anybody's wondering. So you tap on it, and the only thing you can do here is just change the size. I'm going to bring it down. I'm going to make it real small because we don't really need to be looking at that right now. And I'm going to press OK here, and that'll just change the size of it. So I don't really need to have it on. I don't need to have it big. And it does go through treble and bass clef, and so sorry viola players, it doesn't have the alto clef that you normally use in your playing, but again, it's okay. It's not something that we're going to be using too much anyway. On the bottom left, you'll see a little gear symbol for your other settings. Okay, so look at the bottom left above that keyboard. And so we'll tap that. So this is your settings, and you see it says colors, notation, rotate, in tune, tunings, and then info. So let's go through that, and I'll show you the different settings. So the first one's colors. This one is purely cosmetic, so we'll tap colors, and I can change whatever color I want to make the background. It's just like you can change it to your favorite color if you'd like. I like the blue, so I'll just keep it on that. So I'm going to press OK. So we'll go to the next one. The next one's more important, notation. So let's tap notation here. And it brings us to this screen here. At the very top, you can toggle between sharp and flat. So sharp, or you can see there flat, sharp, flat, toggling between the two. Right now it doesn't really matter which one's selected. We will change that back and forth for the future exercises, but for today it doesn't really matter. So that's why I want you to know about where this is. Below that, you have a list of note names in different languages. So make sure yours is set on the top selection, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. The top selection there. Again, it should be just already there. So if it gets changed to something else, we're going to change it back for our purposes here to the one at the top that says C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay, and then when you're finished with that, just press done on the top left. Done, and it goes back to the main screen. Okay, we're going to go to the settings again, and we'll go to the next one. This one's rotate. That simply rotates the screen between portrait and landscape mode, whichever one you prefer. So if I rotate it, you'll see that it changes, and I'm not going to use it on that setting. I'm going to rotate it back. Okay. Next setting is the In Tune button. So that's on the, you can see it right there on the screen. In Tune, I'm going to click that, tap that. Okay, this is an important one. Tap this and you'll be able to scroll between plus or minus 0. I'll scroll there. Plus or minus 0 and to plus or minus 10. And so this calibrates the accuracy of the tuner. For use with our voice, we want this actually to be on the least accurate setting of plus or minus 10. So it's the least accurate. Plus or minus 10 is still a very accurate setting, but it gives some buffer room for the little fluctuations in pitch that are common to the voice, especially if you're just starting out. The point is not to become a great singer with this ear training. It's just you're using your voice as a tool to just get your voice to the right notes, okay? So, so we don't want it to be too accurate because then we'll just get frustrated. So if it's at plus or minus 0, your needle on the dial is not going to get exactly where you want it to be very easily, and you might just, you're just going to get frustrated. So scroll to plus or minus 10, and then hit the done button on the top right, and we're all set. Let's look at the next button. Okay, so tunings is the next one here. It should be preset already to Chromatic 1. Okay, so that was the tunings setting. And we're looking preset Chromatic 1 standard, it says. That's where we want it to stay. Again, for now we want it to stay there. If it gets changed for some reason, just select, again, Chromatic 1, which is the top setting. So, you know, if it goes on 6-string guitar here, open D or something, or whatever it may be, mandolin. We want it to be at the top one. Let's change it back to Chromatic 1. Alright, so we want to be able to access all those notes. And then we're going to press done at the top right, and we're back to the main screen. Okay, so good to go. The last setting here is info. And that's where you can purchase the app to get rid of the advertisements. You know, I, again, wholeheartedly recommend purchasing because it's super cheap for what you get. And again, we want to reduce distraction in our practicing, not invite it in with a lot of advertisements and distractions. And it's very reasonably priced. Okay, so one last point about the tuner that I don't want anyone to miss, okay? When you practice along with the practice videos in this series, oh, let me put this back. So I just push the back button there, okay. All right, so when you practice along with the practice video and with all the practice videos in this series, you need to be singing or vocalizing the exercises along with your own tuning app on your own device to gauge your own performance. The app that's here on the screen next to me, that is only my phone right here, and that's only going to respond to what I'm singing as an example for you. But it won't tell you anything about what you're doing, okay? So I don't want anyone to get confused. So when you're singing, this screen app on the screen here is not going to be responding to your voice at all. That's not a possibility. This is just a video. So I just want to make that point because I could see that possibly it could be a confusing thing. So the app that's on the screen here will only respond to what I'm singing as an example for you. And so definitely watch it. Watch how it responds to my voice. Again, it won't tell anything about what you're doing. You need your own tuning app for that. Okay, so with all that, you've got the whole app. Oh, couple more things real quick. There's the pitch pipe, which is on the bottom right. I'll just go through that real quick. This one just gives us sounds. You can play. Again, we're not going to be really using that right now. And then the other one is the keyboard at the bottom. That one tells you if I sing a note, so I'm singing A, and it tells you where the A is on the keyboard. A. That's all. And so that covers everything with the tuner. So now we'll get into our first exercise. We'll start with something first that most teachers usually wouldn't want students to be doing in class. And that is yawning. Okay? But right now I do want you to yawn in class because that's an easy reference point to getting our voice moving through the pitches. So I'll do a few yawns and we'll see how the dial moves around in a circle. So I'll just do some fake yawns here. They might not sound very convincing, you know, if you're an actor or something like that, but we'll do some fake yawns here. Oh. Yeah, that sounded pretty good. That might have been convincing. Did I sound tired? So if you can see what happened to that dial, it went all around like that. So I'll show you again. Little yawn. So that dial, it moves counterclockwise as I'm doing that. And I'm descending in notes. I'm going from a higher note, higher pitch to a lower tone pitch. Okay, so that's moving through the pitches, and like you can see all those, you know, it's going through all the letters there. So it's important for our yawns to be long and slow, so that way we can see that nice smooth rotation of the dial as much as possible. Now from time to time the needle may stutter and jump around, even when you're doing that nice smooth yawn sound. That is just the device not quite registering what's happening here. But as long as you know that you're doing that, try to ignore that if it happens. It shouldn't happen too much, but sometimes it gets a little bit jumpy. But again, just ignore that. Make sure also that you're vocalizing that yawn and whatever you're doing with your voice loud enough for your device to be able to hear you properly. If you sing too soft, the needle just might not respond, and you might get confused if you're looking at it. You don't need to yell, but sing and vocalize at a good, confident volume like I'm doing. This might take a while. The good thing about these practice videos is that you can do these on your own, and I know that sometimes, like, by doing some of these things like yawning, you might feel like, oh, what's somebody's going to hear me do is a little bit embarrassing. Yeah, just have to kind of just get over that as quickly as you can, because all the singers, and if you listen to singers warming up or choirs warming up, you could hear that the exercises sometimes sound a little bit funny, but that's just the nature of it. So okay, so throughout the practice video, I will give examples. I'll give an example, and then I'll allow a period of silence after that for you to repeat that on your own, and then again, watching how your own tuner here responds to your voice. Okay, so the next one would be reverse yawns. So we're going to, the name pretty much describes this exercise. We'll be ascending with our voice from a lower pitch to a higher pitch. The reverse of what a yawn sounds like. So it'd be like, oh, oh. So now you can see that the dial is moving clockwise, clockwise for that. And I'm not sure if I'm doing that right when the camera and how all that works, but you can see the dial, it'll move clockwise. So don't pay attention to my hand motion here. So again, I'm going to do a reverse yawn. It doesn't have to sound like a yawn. We're just trying to get our voice moving lower to higher. Okay. So the next exercise you'll see on the practice video is full circle sirens. Before we start this exercise, I'd like to point something out on the dial. So notice that the dial has 12 places marked with letters and also a combination of letters with symbols. And so then the needle moves between all those different letters. And right now in mine, you can see that there's letters and then letters with only sharp symbols going up. That's that other setting that we were toggling between sharps and flats. But you'll see the sharp symbols are the little, if you're totally new, it's those little tic-tac-toe type symbols. It's a sharp. So these are the different note names. We'll talk more about the meaning of these 12 particular places, but for now I just want you to bring to your attention that there are 12 places marked around the dial. So what other kind of dial, think of kind of dial that we're familiar with that also has 12 places marked around the circle? And that's right, yes, you said it, it's a clock. That's really convenient now because we're already really familiar with the layout of the dial of a clock, you know, so we'll use this analogy as we're working through the exercises. So that's nice, we have that familiarity. For this exercise, we'll combine, for the full circle sirens, we'll combine the idea of a reverse yawn with a yawn, starting at the bottom, sliding up with our voice, and then sliding down like we did with the yawn. So it'll sound kind of like a siren. And so the general sound is like this. And you can see that dial is moving clockwise first, and then counterclockwise coming down. So that's the general motion. To make that a full circle siren, look at your tuning app while you're vocalizing this and work to get the needle to travel approximately 360 degrees or an hour, like an hour if we're using that clock analogy. It doesn't matter where you start, you know, as long as it's 360 degrees both ways. So I'll demonstrate that. Somewhere about there. Again, don't worry if it starts exactly on a letter or if it's in between. Again, we're just going for the general 360 motion. So that went from E, rotated clockwise to E, and then back counterclockwise to E again. So, you know, for example, if you start on a B, you travel up in pitch or clockwise until the needle hits the same B, and then travel down in pitch counterclockwise until it reaches B again. And so start and end on whatever note feels comfortable for you, and you can even try doing different notes, you know. I would start by, like kind of, don't start sliding right away. Get like where, so you can see the needle like first, and then do your slide so you know where, like in that case I was starting on C sharp, so now I know I need to get all the way to that C sharp. If you just kind of start, you may not see where it starts, then you don't know where it ends, it's supposed to end. So again, whatever feels comfortable for you, and then you can even try starting on different ones as well. So when you're going through the practice video, again, you don't need to start and end on the ones that I'm demonstrating for any of these exercises. So if I did one in the video that started on an E, you don't need to start there. As long as you're doing the full circle, you can start and end wherever you want. That's the point. You travel the same distance as me on the dial. We're looking also to be approximate, so don't be too obsessed in getting the needle in the exact, precise, same spot to the millimeter. Okay, you don't have to be that accurate. It's generally 360 degrees. So watch me again. So there I'm at the C sharp. So I may have passed it a little bit when I went up, and then I kind of passed it again a little tiny bit when I came down. So that's okay. That's generally what we're looking for. Okay. Next exercise you'll see is the half circle sirens, and this is the same idea, except now we'll be moving the needle with our voice approximately 180 degrees, only halfway around the dial, or if you could think like a half hour. Again, it doesn't matter which half hour or which half you do. You can try a variety of different halves of the dial. Let me show you like one of them. So I'm starting on D, and if I want to go halfway, I'm going to go straight across on the other side of D, which would be G sharp. So again, it's approximate. I didn't quite get the needle exactly on D and exactly on G sharp, but I'm looking for that approximate motion. I'll try another one. So we're about there on C. Okay, so I tried to get a little bit closer to that last C when I was finished. Okay, so you'll practice this for a while. We'll give several chances, and then we'll move on to quarter circle sirens. You can do this in the practice video. Quick side note, you can do these if you feel like you want more practice. You can always pause the video and do it more, but I would just recommend going through the video all the way through and just do your best on each one of them. And then if you want to practice it again, then just practice the whole video again. If you do that for a few days and you still feel like you want to work on one more in particular, you can always pause the video and keep working on it on your own. Keep struggling with it until you get it. Okay, so the next exercise is quarter circle sirens. And so we want to now move the needle 90 degrees. So 90 degrees this way. Again, if this were a clock, we're looking at about 15 minutes now. Again, it doesn't matter which quarter or which 15 minutes the needle is moving between. And again, you don't have to copy my exact pitches. Your voice range might be different than mine. So let's try one here. So they're in C. So you see I went C to all the way to D sharp. It's like that 15 minutes there. So I'm going to start on D sharp now. And where am I going to, if I'm starting on D sharp, I want to go to F sharp and back. So now we're trying to train our voices to do smaller ranges and have control over that. Okay, so you experiment on different quarters of the dial, and it doesn't have to be like, you don't always have to go C to D sharp or A to C. You can go like B. B would be like 11 o'clock on a clock, so then 15 minutes, or I guess we would say 55 minutes on a clock. And so then 15 minutes from there would be 10 minutes, so we're looking at D. So B to D is also a quarter of the clock. Okay, so so have fun with that. And then the next exercise is going to be whole step sirens. So now we're taking it away. Excuse me. We're taking it away from like thinking of it in circles or half circle, things like that. And we're thinking now we're using a musical term. This is whole step sirens. And maybe don't worry too much about what that means, but this is now coming into a musical term, whole step. Again, some of you may know exactly what that is, but we're not dealing too much with that right now. What I will tell you is that you are going to move the dial with your voice about like 10 minutes if it were a clock. So we're going to go like every other note name. So if I'm starting on C, if I'm starting on C, then I'm going to slide up to D, C, D, C. I'm just naming the notes for you, but you don't need to do that. So that's approximately the right amount of motion there. I'll show you one more time. Is a little bit, excuse me, a little bit more accurate that time. So if I were starting on D, then I would shoot for D to E. And you can start again where your voice just feels comfortable. You don't have to shoot for any particular note. So that one's A to B. So we're just skipping one of the letters, and so again it's like that 10 minutes on the clock. So this one and the following exercises might take a little more time to get down. So again, that's okay. Keep trying and you'll get there. The next exercise is half step siren. So again, we're using a musical term here, and that's half step. And our basic definition for that right now is just going to be one letter to the next letter. And that means when I say that, one place on the clock to the next place on the clock. So C would go to C sharp and back down to C. D would go to D sharp and back to D. B would go to C and then back to B. So one notch on this dial is what you're looking for a half step. So here's where you're really starting to control your voice. Make sure again that you're going for approximate placing of the needle, as you can see from my examples. So let's start, I'm here. So that's about G, G. So I'm like going from G to G sharp and back to G. And maybe I'll try, that's F. So I'm going to go F to F sharp, back to F. I'm going to try something else. So let's see. Okay, one more. So let's start on A. Like that. And you can just make sure that, you know, if it is a little bit, if you start out, you know, say if I was a little bit below A, well, in that case, let me see here. Right there. So I'm a little bit below A. So then I can go just a little bit below A sharp and then back, you know. Again, for this beginning level, it's okay to do that as long as, again, you're getting the right distance is what we're really going for. And then you can practice and get it more accurate later. Okay, so then the next one is quarter step sirens. And so again, this is more of a musical term, but you're not going to encounter this term too much when you're playing. But For voice control, we're going for very fine movements of the voice. And so we want to have this skill. We want this needle to move back and forth from one of the letters to halfway to the next letter. So if we were thinking about the, what it'd be on a clock, it would be about like 2.5 minutes on a clock. So in between one 5-minute increment to the next one. So this area between letters is what would be considered like out of tune. But you do need to learn how to do this fine movement with your voice in order to be able to match notes in the upcoming videos. Because if you're a little bit out of tune, you need to know how to get it to the right note. And so that way, by learning to kind of go in between and then come back, then you'll be able to make that fine motion to get exactly to where you need to be to match the notes with your ear. So with these exercises, you can really learn to control your voice. So let me show you one for the quarter step. So I'm starting on G, and so I'm going to try to shoot going from G and then halfway to G sharp and back. So these are really fine motions, and again, like that needle might get a little bit jumpy, but don't worry too much about that. Just have it be going the general direction that you need it to go. Let me try another note here with the quarter step. And say if I do get it like in between two notes to start, well, then I can just go to the next note, and that'll be just as much a quarter step. So I started in between, and then I went to the letter, and then I ended in between. So that's the point of today, is just getting the movements and controlling this dial with your voice. Later on, as you start hearing, if you get this, you start hearing the notes, and we're going to be working towards this. We're going to be playing notes on the piano later, and then you'll hear it and also be able to control it with the dial, to be able to have feedback from the dial. It's actually harder to just use the dial like we're doing right now. Once you hear the notes, then you have another reference point, and so you can use what you're hearing and what you're seeing, and it'll be a lot easier. So after going through this video, you should have the skills that you need. So again, as with every series on 10-Minute Violin, getting comfortable with these foundational exercises is super important for moving on with the next steps. So this might be really challenging the first time you go through it. It might not be, but for many of you, it might be really challenging. But as always, press play every day with your practice video. Keep trying. Struggle with it, even if it seems impossible for you. Keep doing it, and in time you will get it. Your brain will start to learn what to do, but it takes that persistence in doing it. Again, like I said before, I would recommend to not really stop and practice, like say if you're not getting the full circle sirens, don't stop there and just try to get that until you're perfect on it before going through the rest of the video. Just go through the video, do it as best you can. And again, like if you're not getting it within a few days, then maybe spend some extra time on one or two of them that you're struggling more with. But if you don't move on, sometimes you'll just get stuck on one. So I don't want that. So try as much as possible just to use the video as is. Okay, so that's it for today's training session. Thank you so much for watching. And again, follow the links below if you'd like to book a private lesson with me or John. And if you find our content helpful, I'd like to remind you to subscribe, hit the bell to be notified every time we release a new video, and like and share it with your friends. Join us next time as we continue the Violin Ear Training series. Don't forget to follow up daily with the Violin Ear Training Part 1 10-minute practice video. And remember to press play every day. And goodbye for now.